Here we go.
Say, O prophet, O people of the book, you have nothing to stand on unless you observe the Torah, the gospel. And this is where the Christian history stopped. And what has been revealed to you from your Lord. And your Lord's revelation to you will only cause many of them to increase in wickedness. Like you. And your Lord's revelation, you don't follow the Quran. That's the point. And your Lord's revelation to you will only
follow all of them.
Are you going to shut up? I'm
going
to shut up.
Don't be rude.
Say, oh, people of the book, you have nothing to stand on unless you observe the Torah, the gospel, and what has been revealed to you from your Lord.
So what does that mean, ladies and gentlemen? It means that I, as a Christian, have to follow what? The Torah, the Injil, and the Quran.
Yes.
What is the Injil? Yeah, what is the Injil?
Right, so let's go back to chapter 5, verse 46. I'm going to do some tafsir al-Quran bil Quran, right?
So he's just admitted, so as Christians we have to follow the gospel.
Right. So, then, in the footsteps of the prophets, we sent Jesus, son of Mary, confirming the Torah revealed before him, and we gave him the gospel containing guidance and light. Where is this gospel that was given to Jesus?
Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John.
Oh, wait. Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. So literally, Jesus Christ preached the words of Matthew, the words of Mark, the words of Luke, the words of John. You're dumb, man.
Wait, he's just condemned Allah. Do you hear what he just says? Allah quotes other people. He's just said because Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John are from their perspective, it can't be from them. You've just contradicted your Quran.
That's it, yeah. You can think all you like.
You do know
on the day of judgment.
On the day of judgment, does the Quran quote Jesus? Does the Quran quote Jesus?
May Allah guide you to
Does the Quran quote Jesus? Does the Quran quote Adam and Muhammad and Isa and Yunus? And does it not tell them what they did? There you go, ladies and gentlemen. Absolute catastrophe. What a terrible performance by Rayhan. Did you hear his final argument? That was the hole in the narrative right there. What he just said was that he thinks that the gospel, the Injil, cannot be Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John because Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John is an account. It's a biographical account. And it can't be that because that makes no sense. But by that logic, he's just condemned his own Quran because the Quran uses biographical accounts as well. Ladies and gentlemen, he just contradicted his own Quran.
No, you contradicted yourself.
Ladies and gentlemen, come to our Lord Jesus Christ. He's the way, the truth, and the life. Don't end up like Rayhan. Don't end up believing in an Injil and a Torah when you don't know what it is.
A man, yeah?
You worship Muhammad.
No,
so believe in Jesus Christ, the sinless one, not the one who sins, not the one who sins, not the one who sins. God bless you all. Have a great day.
No prophet sins, you dumbass.
Oh, you're upset.
You think that's why they've been chosen?
You've been upset,
but they're sinful, you dumbass. What are you talking about?
Run away, little boy.
Don't ever have two kings at once.
Again, that's not my point.
Okay, wait. If that's not your points, then you cannot argue that Babylon had the same kind of division that Rome had in the BC period when they literally had two emperors. In fact, before the 300s, at one point they had 4 emperors. So you cannot argue that it is the same as Babylon.
Was that formal division or informal division?
What is the definition of a formal division?
Geopolitical.
Yes.
Something that constitutes like actual division.
Yes, it will be formal due to the lots of the empire. So even in the BC period, when you have Octavius and Mark Antony, that would still constitute a formal division because they were ruling over 2 parts of the empire. Babylon, to my knowledge, at no point in history ever had 2 kings. So when you argue for formal and informal division, and draw a parallel between Babylon and the BC period of Rome in the time of Cleopatra, Mark Antony, Caesar, you cannot say they're the same thing. So I can still argue, that that division was occurring in the time before you had Jesus and the church. Therefore, the church coming and smashing the mixed kingdom would be the way that the Christian church took over the empire without actually raising the sword or fighting with an army.
So now what he's arguing for is essentially that since Babylon, according to his knowledge, which he hasn't clarified, not confirmed, didn't have two or more kings. Again, no issue, I'll do it anyway, I have no issue. 2 or more kings.
No.
Yeah, but the thing is, he's making a point, but he's not sure. He should. Yeah, do you want to let me finish the point? My guy, do you want to let me finish or not? So which means that although Babylon had informal division, Daniel still considered it as one undivided kingdom. Now, he still has the issue to deal with in Daniel, of the little horn that rises in Daniel 7. What's your account of the little horn?
So wait a second. Before we get to the little horn, my main argument is that the kingdom classified as being made by God and coming from the rock can't be Islam. Before we get to the little horn, are you going to admit that it cannot be Islam? Islam is exactly the same as every kingdom that comes forth?
Yeah, you haven't given me a defeat of holding the position of Islam. Now,
so my thing is this. Well, a moment. It was my turn technically. My defeat, and you answered this. My defeat.
I'm finished.
My defeater, for your point, would be that Islam is exactly the same. Okay, Islam is exactly the same as every other kingdom that came before us. It is not in any way divinely appointed.
You're begging the question.
I'm not begging the question because I'm not assuming the conclusion in my premise.
Yeah.
Islam is exactly the same as, for example, the Mongol Empire or the Mughal Empire. It rises and falls by with a collective of people with a common ideology, with an expansionist mindset, and then falls when it gets too large or makes the enemy can defeat.
Amazing. So now, can you please give us an account of who the little horn is? Because according to Daniel 7,
before we get there, we're going to have to concede the fact that Islam is not going to
You mentioned that Islam, just because it was militarily established,
which is like
okay, can you please give me the contradiction in me holding the case that Islam is a divinely appointed or militarily appointed kingdom, and this contradicts anywhere in Daniel? Where does Daniel specify?
Daniel says the kingdom will be unlike any other kingdom. What is your argument for Islam being unlike or non-identical to any other kingdom?
The first four are going to be pagan, and the last one is going to be monotheistic, established by God Himself. That's going to be a distinguishing factor between the first four and the last kingdom.
That would not make it a distinction because
is that not a distinction?
No,
that's not a distinction.
No, because you have to prove that your son is a pagan.
Do you have an argument why it's pagan?
Well, okay, first of all, pagan means non-Christian. Islam non-Christian, therefore it's pagan.
Wait. That's what I'm not going to answer. It's good. Which means, for example, even if some Trinity, was coined, even though it was being used and established in the Old Testament, correct? Yes or no?
So the term was used to describe a relation,
good.
And there's influence for the New Testament.
Amazing.
So who was the original Christians?
Okay, amazing. So you agree with me that even though a term can be coined later, the definition can still be used in before that, correct?
Okay.
Yes or no?
Okay, some on your point, right? I agree with you.
Okay, good.
Wait, hold on a second. Hold on a second. I agree with you that a concept from the past
Can be used before the definition. Amazing.
No. A concept from the past can have a name or a notion that formalizes it far beyond or later than when the original event occurred. It's possible, right? For example, we call Egypt today, but 5,000 years ago, was it called Egypt? We don't know. When it then comes to the idea of that kind of thing, if we are saying that, if you're saying that the previous kingdoms were pagan, pagan is a term coined by Christians to refer to those who are non-Christian. Just like within Islam, you use the word mushrik to describe an associator. Good.
So that's fine. I don't have to agree with this.
So Islam is pagan by definition.
That's fine. I don't agree with the term that he's using. That pagan specifically is going to refer to those who are non-Christian. That's fine. It's simply going to refer to those who don't serve the one true God. In which case we agree. We know that the first we agree that the first four kingdoms did not worship one deity. They were not monotheistic in that sense. Which means that this is going to be a distinguishing factor between the first four and the final kingdom. Now, what I care about, what's important here, is the timeline, which I haven't been able to give me a defeat of. According to Daniel 7, sir, the little horn is going to be has to be constituted.
So, like I told you, before we get to the point that Islam cannot be of the kingdom because it is global, because in its origin and in its falling, it's exactly the same as every other kingdom ever had.
You asked me to give you a defeat on between.
No,
you asked me to give you a disability account between the first, between the first and Islam. And I specifically mentioned how Islam is going to be monotheistic in comparison to all the other.
But the problem you have here
is that it's
can you prove that all the other kingdoms were at all times always monotheistic? Because I can tell you about the grandson of paganism.
That's relevant.
Who was attempting to establish monotheism in Babylon under the god Sin.
Yes, so it's irrelevant.
That would technically show you in certain cases where there was a reformation within the first kingdom, within the kingdom, to go from polytheism to monotheism.
Okay,
So actually,
so at some point, all four were pagan, correct? So polytheism, correct?
So,
yes or no?
at some point, all engaged in polytheism.
Okay, good.
However,
Okay, good.
can you make an argument that every single one of them?
I don't need to show man. You asked me one second. No, wait. You asked me a question now. No. You asked me a question. You literally asked me a question. Just let me finish.
Okay, what's my question?
Yeah,